Welcome back to Rad City Resin, where you get a new UV resin tutorial every week. Do you ever wonder what to do with the scraps and bits of material you have left at the end of a project? Let me show you my favorite way to use up any leftover pieces of copper, glitter, and beads you were planning to throw away. I had a few pieces of copper left over from another project, and I never like letting things go to waste, so I decided to turn it into a fun little spacey ring. Let's make some magic together. I started by taking these scraps of copper and twisted them around the body of this alcohol ink bottle. I laid them down and adjusted them until I was happy with the shape of the crescent moon. Now you could use any shape for this, but this just happened to be what I saw in my head when I saw these two little pieces, so that's what I went with. I took a small amount of UV resin in the corners to fuse them together. I cured on both sides to turn it into a solid and sturdy bezel. Fun fact, UV resin is actually a type of light-activated polymer used for bonding plastics and metals together. So it was basically made for projects like this. Once I was happy with the shape, I trimmed off the excess copper. Don't worry about any sharp edges because we will build the resin up to cover them. Next, I flooded the bezel with a thin layer of clear resin, using my dotting tool to spread it out. You can use a piece of resin tape, clear packing tape, or any other type of backing to do this, but honestly, I usually just lay the pieces directly on my silicone baking sheet and then add my resin. It actually saves a lot of time and it doesn't leave a weird residue that I have to clean off later. Again, I gave this a solid cure for roughly about 2 minutes. I took my bottle of violet colored alcohol ink and dropped a few dots into the center of the frame. I used the dotting tool to spread it around, but you could use anything like a Q-tip or a paintbrush or something like that. You will want this to completely dry. You can do this by waiting about 20 minutes or so, but what I typically do is I'll use the flame of a candle lighter to burn off the alcohol. Please don't try this at home. But if you do, make sure you're in a well-ventilated space, that you're working on a flame-resistant surface, and that you have any flammable materials far away from your flame. Next, once I was sure it was completely dry, I added a light dusting of chameleon powder. This chameleon powder is by Baltic Day, and I actually really love them. They were one of the cheaper options that I saw on Amazon, and they actually work really well. I'll leave a link down below for these, and I love how they look. The color shift is so pretty. Next, I added a tiny sprinkle of color shift glitter to the bottom of the piece. I did this using the plastic part of an eyeshadow applicator, but you could use tweezers or a paintbrush or just drop it directly on using your fingers. I added more UV resin to the top and sealed everything in. But before curing, I pulled out a few star beads that I had from another project because I thought that would look really cute, you know, like the moon and the stars. I added one to the very bottom. And then cured again. I wanted to make sure that this was very well cured because I didn't want to accidentally leave fingerprints. But lo and behold, I managed to add one anyway. So cure longer than you think you have to. So at this point, this would make a really cute necklace, or you can make 2 of them and have earrings. But honestly, my favorite type of jewelry will always be rings. They're so fun to make and they always add a little razzle dazzle to any outfit. So I decided to turn this into a ring. For the ring portion of the piece, I took another piece of scrap wire, folded it in half, and then straightened out the 2 edges, or straightened out the 2 lines as much as possible. I wrapped it around the body of an alcohol ink bottle to give it a ring shape. You can use a ring mandrel to make sure it fits your finger, but I was actually planning to make this as an adjustable ring, so I really just turned it into like a C shape. I took one of my thin silicone pads and rolled it up into a cylinder. I put the wire on the silicone roll and let the silicone roll unravel a little bit until it fit very snugly inside of the ring. Now this part can be a little tricky. I added a bit of resin into the gap between the wires, and I did this in sections about a couple of centimeters long, then cured after each section. I did this until the wire frame was completely full, and I actually ended up doing 2 passes of this all the way around the frame because it kept kind of being a little bit uneven. If you have one of those spinning pin things that rotate your items around, that would probably make this way easier. I've seen them online, and I'll post one down in the description so you can tell what I mean. Now it's time to make this ring pretty. I added some drops of alcohol ink and let it flow around in the frame. I used a piece of tissue paper to soak up some of the alcohol instead of using the flame this time because I don't really know the heat resistance of these silicone pads and I didn't want to take any chances. I mixed a little bit of glitter into some resin on my silicone pad. Then used my dotting tool to dab it around the ring. I made sure to fully cure this, again to try to avoid any fingerprints. If you're super careful, you should be able to get it nice and smooth, but if you ended up with any thicker spots or any drips, you can sand them off using either a rotary tool or sandpaper. Now I needed to attach the ring to the moon, so I turned the moon upside down and added a dab of resin to the back of it, then held the ring in place while I cured it. It takes a moment or two for it to set, but then you can let it go while it fully cures. I took a bit of time to add a little more resin to the back to make sure it was essentially fused into one piece. As a final detail, I added another star bead to the other side of the ring. I laid the bead down, put a dab of resin on the back of it, then held the ring in place while I cured it. And there it is. This does fit pretty well on any one of the fingers I choose to wear it on. I love big chunky rings like this. They're so much fun. And hopefully you'll enjoy making something similar. If you do, make sure that you let me know because I'd love to see what you come up with. There's so many different ideas that you could do for this. Once again, all of my socials will be in the description below. Definitely subscribe and make sure you turn on your alerts so that you catch every video that I post every Tuesday. All right, y'all, stay rad and we'll see you again next week. And if you enjoyed that video, I bet you'll enjoy this one too. Take a look.